Welcome to Make Your Passion Pay. I'm Luann Beekler, creator of the Make Your Passion Pay Playbook, your host and guide on this exciting journey to building joyful and successful work environments. Known as the Little Spark, I've helped countless individuals and businesses ignite their potential through transformational coaching, creating thriving businesses and joyful workplaces. I have experienced the challenges of leaving toxic workplaces and building something better. I bring firsthand wisdom to help you align your work with your values. With insights drawn from working alongside world-renowned leaders and a deep passion for community and connection, I'm here to show you how to lead with joy and purpose. Let's dive into today's episode and start making your passion pay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Make Your Passion Pay. I'm Luann B., your host of the show, and I'm super excited today to have a fellow BNI member joining us all the way from Austin, Texas, Ian Noble. Welcome, Ian.
Hi, Luann. Thanks for having me.
It's so exciting to connect on yet another level with members of my BNI family. And so Ian and I really connected on Podmatch, which if you're a podcaster and have yet to look into Podmatch, I encourage you to do that to get matched to guests to be on your show. And that's how we connected. And he has a very interesting story of how he got started in business and transitioned to what he's doing now. And we're going to go through that and relate it to the 6 C's of Make Your Passion Pay. Because I know one thing we have in common, Ian, is we understand the value of core values in a business. But tell us how you got started first. What was your first business?
My first business was a family business that my dad had started in the 80s. It was a dry cleaning company. So I got to see him, growing up. I watched him in this business. I wasn't too involved actually when I was a kid. And after college, there was no intent for that to be a fallback plan. My dad had asked me, I know you think you want to go and work some fancy corporate job, but come give this a shot. You're going to learn much more than what you would with some company. And very happy I did that. So at 21, I started in the dry cleaning industry and worked it for 14 years from then on. Yeah, just day in and day out.
That's a big commitment.
Yeah, it was when I first got involved, I didn't really have a role. So I just started at the bottom, started learning everything that I could. My intent was to run it like I was the owner, but I wasn't yet. That was a couple of years down the road. But started by pressing clothing, taking out stains, tagging clothes, all the basics that a dry cleaner does. I needed to learn it first before I was going to change anything. So that was my start in 2010 in that industry.
Which is a great reminder to our listeners who are out there going, I have a passion and I want to make it pay. You still need to start at the basics, right? And really understand that industry before you can move into managing a business yourself in most cases. And so, how long were you there with your dad still running the show?
So he was the owner for the next 5 years, but he wasn't coming to work. He had removed himself from the business a while back, and it's a customer service business, and I think there was some burnout involved. A lot of entrepreneurs face that. I ran it from day one. Once I felt comfortable that I knew how to do most everything in the role, I started to, and the intent was, I'm going to run this thing like I own it. Someday I hopefully will. And then we had that conversation a couple years later. I think 5 years later, or maybe around year 4, listen, we need to start setting something up because if I'm here and I'm already doing it, I need to go or be an owner or you need, one of the two. So
Right.
my dad and I, we actually never worked a day together. We would talk about the business all the time, but we weren't showing up and going to the office together. I'm fortunate that, family business is tough. And so that dynamic could have been tough to navigate. Him and I are best friends, but we're very different when it comes to how we work and operate. And so that was the start of it though.
So, had your father established core values for the dry cleaning company?
He had the core value at the time, what was quality cleaning at a fair, at a good value price. The people would be treated as as equals. And so I think when I got in there, part of what I wanted to do is show them that, listen, I'm whatever position I end up becoming, ultimately the owner someday, nobody's above one another. So we all work, and the expectation is that I'll never point fingers and have you do something that I wouldn't, including cleaning toilets, pressing clothes, anything that it took to show the team that this is the expectation. And so I liked it. I think that it naturally forced everyone, myself included, to work a lot more in the business. So many people want to work on their business. I was definitely an operator that was working in it, but that core value of being able to roll up your sleeves, work with the staff next to you, regardless of their position. That was fun. We were all, we were all equals in that regard. Even though naturally companies have hierarchy and positions, if we needed somebody to cover a store and I was the available person, off I went. Same as anybody else.
How many stores did you have now that you've spoken of multiples?
There were 15 when I first got involved, and then we added a few, removed a few, or closed down a couple. And so currently there are 14 stores. So COVID helped eliminate some of the bad ones or the underperformers, and none of them were actually bad, but there were some that just weren't profiting enough. And so that helped, identify which ones they are. It was a good time to try to, thin out the operation, and then yeah, kept the 14.
Wow. So it would seem to me that core values of the organization would be even more important when you have 14 stores, that they're all operating on the same quality of product and service and customer service. What would you say to that?
You're exactly right. The customer service component of that business in particular was so crucial. It's, that a lot of industries, especially when you're getting foot traffic, you can have difficult situations. And I think that our team knew that we were going to operate with integrity, take care of those customers as best we could. And so it was important to have that standard, especially to your point, there were multiple locations. We had, manager meetings and monthly meetings with these groups saying, hey, the importance of this, because I think that was what was lacking when I first got in. When I first got involved, my dad, like I mentioned earlier, wasn't going the day to day. And there were the two
Right.
gals that were running it, and they were doing an incredible job as best as they could. There were a lot of moving parts to this company, and I was fortunate enough to be able to work with them. As I grew and developed, they taught me the basics of everything. And so, again, to that point that all of us are in this together because it's hard. And you're wearing a sweater right now, and those type of sweaters are prone for little tiny thread pulls that come out. It's called loop knit construction. I know way too much about fabric. So loop knit construction pulls very easily, and it's a difficult job because we might clean that sweater, and then if there was one thread by an armpit near the back, belt loop that
Sure.
looked pulled, you owe me this is customer to the business.
Right.
Pay up. You owe me a sweater. And that's a difficult thing to navigate. And so we always had to service, what was top of mind. And for that industry, I think this goes into the whole sphere of the burnout, making sure that, you're always trying to keep customers happy, but it is a never ending job. Regardless of, you can hammer those core values down day after day, and the next day you're going to have to do it again. So it's
So that's
never sets
interesting.
permanently.
That's interesting language, hammer down every day. Was there tools that you used? You talked about meetings already, right? Were there other tools, like were they posted in the stores, things like that, to remind people of the core values that the organization was built on?
I did not post them in the store. This was a discussion, and there was a thought behind this. I
Mhm.
didn't want some of our competitors did do that. There's one in town that had it was basically like the 10 commandments of dry cleaning, or like what their values would be. But for me, I thought, it means more to show it versus to have a sign on a wall because
Mhm.
everyone has a bad day sometimes. And what I didn't want would be like core value number one, golden rule, treat others as you would treat. And then, how am I going to explain that to a customer when we do have a staff member that's cranky, going through something, or just doesn't handle a situation properly? So for that reason alone, I kept the sign off so that it didn't become this conversation of, look right there, you're supposed to be kind and you're not being kind. And I thought, that's like telling somebody that's angry or irritated to calm down. It's like,
Yeah.
when does that work? And so there was just repetition, just making sure that you gave praise as much as you could. And that is the hardest thing. We were a high traffic business. There's 100+ customers a day, and that would be at a minimum that are coming into a particular store. And so for us, it was keeping that service top of mind. And then later on, a good system that was put in place was encouraging those people to give reviews. So that was a key factor in our success for reputation building as we went, was finally asking and being intentional for reviews.
Yeah,
We
well,
used to not
that's
be like that. Yeah, but it made a huge difference.
yeah, that's an absolute, in my opinion. And the one thing I coach people on a lot is making sure how are they getting feedback from their customers. And there's feedback for us as business owners to be continuously improving what we're doing from that feedback. And it's a way to recognize our team members when someone has specifically responded about their experience with one of the team members, right? And
That's
now
right.
I can show that to the team member and recognize and celebrate that they're in alignment with our core values. And that's what you want to do. You never want to use them as a stick, but as a guiding tool to help everybody stay in the right state of mind that you expect them to be in. And so maybe they're not posted to the public, but posted to the rest of the team. But I was at a conference on culture recently where they talked about if we fail to recognize team members for doing things right in alignment with our core values, they stop doing them.
Yeah, I
They
believe it.
stop
And
doing them. That the recognition is so important.
it's also the hardest thing to do because you're I struggled with this when I was, when I still owned that company. It was almost an expectation. Luann, it's a core value. You need to be kind to these people every single day. And it became that, again, a weakness. If you didn't do it, you'd hear from me. But when you did, you didn't hear from me enough.
Right.
And this was a challenge that I think people run into. To your point, you need to make sure that you're recognizing people. We would do competitions and whatnot of stores that had, most reviews this month, things like that to celebrate the store managers and the staff. Give little gift cards and things to show appreciation. But it was definitely a very for me in the way that I handle leadership. It's hard because the expectation is to be excellent.
Right.
It's the standard that I hold myself to. And sometimes you have to turn your brain off and think, well, this isn't about me. It's about the staff and the team because, we don't have robots of ourselves yet that can staff every store. So,
Right.
um, but maybe they'll come. They've
Right.
hit the fast food industry and it's coming.
Yeah. I think the point here is it is a challenge, and is that's why we need to raise it in our awareness to really shift our tendency to look at the negative and reprimand right away, and fail to recognize the positive and recognize in that pattern. So as business owners, I think we all have that, right? And so just a reminder to my listeners that we're telling you the best practices. We're not saying they're always easy.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Business is
you
hard.
made a comment there about right when you did own this business. So this is no longer what you're doing, and I believe you told me though that you felt like having those set of core values added value to the sale of the business.
It did. I think, we spent a lot of time talking about the core values earlier of being kind to one another, always keeping customer service first and working as a team. The new owner saw that, recognized it, and I believe, knew its value. You can't necessarily put a price tag on this stuff, but it's an all-encompassing figure um, that directly relates to sales, bottom line, all this stuff by following what the company, certain standards within the company. So new ownership is doing that as well. Super kind, laid back, will do whatever it takes, which was really important for me as we went through a transition because I was a second generation owner, bought it from my dad. He started it, so a lot of heart and emotion went into that. Same thing for me when I took over. And then you wonder, all right, this business is about to leave the family. Will that person carry on, what has been built? There's stories out there of private equity coming in and buying up, businesses and they go downhill fast. They might make
Sure.
more money, but I'm talking like culture wise, um, going downhill. And so, yeah, I think that it played a role in the sale of the business. I think, the new owner just naturally aligned with it, which was great. It's as much as you can ask for when you're passing the torch.
Well, and isn't that the point, right? I think that it is that new owner was attracted to what you had built because they aligned with core values such as those, right? And now
Yes.
I'm purchasing something that's already operating in that modus operandi, right? And so it's
Yeah.
more valuable to me. I don't have to recreate the wheel. I already have it all in place. And to that end, I worked with a client who we built the core values and built the business up to a valuable sales opportunity. And after he sold it, it went through three different owners who chose not to adopt his core values, and it is now since closed.
Oh, no.
So, core values are a super important thread that run through all businesses. In the 6 C's of Make Your Passion Pay, they're in connection, and it's connecting our actions to our core values and leaving a legacy, right? Which is what you really wanted to do for your father, all the hard work you had done, and not just let that slip away, but now the legacy lives on with the new owner, which is super cool. So, I one of my invitations is to help people with legacy planning. So you moved on that business, you sold it, gave it its next best owner, and now you're doing something else. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I sold, I had an identity crisis. I hate using the word crisis, but a couple days later or weeks later, I was like, my identity was tied to being this dry cleaner and owning this business, and then it went away. And naturally, I thought I need to go buy another business right now. I was going to do it differently the second go around. I sold because I was burnt out. I had made myself the center of the operation. I didn't need to. I was the bottleneck. And we had reached kind of a glass ceiling to where I either needed to fix all the processes and do it right or let somebody else do it. And it was the timing was opportunistic. Like I received this email. I was going through a time when I had, starting to have young children, and with my kids, I was always thinking about work and not about my kids. And so I needed to create something for myself that would align with my goals moving forward. And real estate was the answer. I had been doing real estate and buying rental properties since 2014. I saw my dad do this. I think that's why he could step away from the dry cleaner so soon. So I think it was just
Mm-hmm.
something inside that said, that's what I'm going to do, and started doing that. Use the cash flow and income from the business to then, fund my life, which I live very frugally, and then go buy property. And so I did that over and over and over. And when I got out, it was the next course of action. Like, how can I do this to where I'm not buying a property at a time, but I'm, scaling faster and larger through partnerships. When I sold, I was going to have a tax burden coming up the following January. I sold it in October, and there was going to be a large tax payment due in January. And real estate has some very good tax advantages that, especially depending on the status that you have with the IRS, like and what your your main occupation is. you can offset some of your ordinary income, which in that case, that year was a little bit special because I sold the business. You can offset that through real estate investments. And so, long story short, I got into this business from a personal need. I love real estate. I wanted to reduce my tax burden. And then I thought, this is really fun. I can continue to own real estate and I don't have to exhaust my time, is what it's the definition of passive investing. So I got pretty heavily involved. I became a passive investor, just finding other deals that people were running and operating, putting money into it, getting the tax benefits, the cash flow, all of that. And then I thought, I need to make this available to others. Number one, I really enjoy it and I like what I'm doing. It was a big change from having 95 employees back down to just me and a virtual assistant. So
Wow.
yes, yeah, very, very big change, but I'm really enjoying it. And so now what I do is I help business owners through a private network that I built passively invest into real estate so they can add income streams outside of their business because life happens, people get injured, there's divorces, there's death,
Right.
disability. These things come up in life, and so many people, 100% of their net worth is tied up in their business. And so I just like to have that conversation and let them know that, hey, there's other ways to do it that are safe and efficient because I'm also like all my stuff is what I consider low risk. So it's basically I make every decision how am I going to invest in this because I'm a low risk guy, and then let's bring in some other people. And I say my entrepreneurs are my main focus, but it could be any investor. Primarily, though, I get along with entrepreneurs just because we all speak the same language. We've gone through the same battles and have the same scars, and so I like talking with that group of people.
Well, and I think the key word here that I'm hearing is passive investing. Therefore, am I generating a passive income from that? And I don't have to run something else.
That's
Are
correct.
most
Yeah.
are most of your investors running a business and still doing passive investing, or are they um, retired or out of business using what they earned to continue making an income through passive investing?
Both. However, most of them are still active and running businesses. Um, and I offer something that's good for each, so that my focus is on mobile home parks and then private lending funds. And so, generally speaking, the people that are still active and they run their company, they are generally more interested in equity and ownership. So the mobile home parks are good for them. They get, and you said passive, yes, both options are passive, but they get the tax benefits, they get the cash flow, they're an owner, and so there's upside. They're looking at the long game. On the flip side, are investors that are, let's call it 55 and up. They're more focused on not having the ownership, but having the stable fixed income, which is the private lending side. And that's been a great tool for people, whether after they sell their business or they have a lump sum through inheritance where they can just park it. I call it like a parking garage fund, and they can earn 8, 9, or 10%. And we lend that money out to a large portfolio of homes to where those houses, we are in first position. Like we are the bank, essentially, when people are flipping these homes. And so we have something for everybody, but yeah, retired, end of career, they tend to like private lending funds. And then I would say younger real estate minded or people that have a longer horizon tend to like the mobile home park opportunities a little bit more.
So I've just realized I need to hook you up with my son. So
Okay.
I got a referral for you. I
Okay.
think there's a lot more to talk about here than we have time for in just one podcast episode. So we'll dive deeper in this together and then bring you back on the show another time. But
Yeah.
for the people who are already intrigued by what you're doing and have the desire to have that passive investing investments to make more income, how do they reach you?
So for listeners of your show, I've created a cheat sheet that will anyone who's curious about what passive investing is it real? What questions do I ask? This document has it all. So it's a good starter guide. We'll leave that in the show notes, and I hope that it gives value to everyone listening. And beyond that, there'll be some other links in there. My website, runsteadyinvestments.com, and we'll include like the social media stuff in there as well. But that cheat sheet brings a lot of value. I'd recommend downloading it, taking a look, and seeing if it's for you. Business owners, one unique thing about this and what I do now is that in passive investing, you are delegating your money in advance and you're giving somebody else control that you have to know, like, and trust, which is different than the mindset of an entrepreneur that's used to being the doer and handling all the decisions themselves. So that was definitely a challenge for me when I first got involved. But I'm now seeing the benefits of the time freedom. So much of what, you get to a point to where it's, okay, you've reached a comfort level financially, but we are all on the same ground or playing field when it comes to time. And so these passive investments help people buy back their time and free it up so that they can still earn income when they're not on the clock. Once you see it, you can't unsee it is the way I describe it best.
Fascinating. I love it. That seems like a great summary. Any other last minute tips or golden nuggets for the audience?
Since your audience is mostly entrepreneurs, I like to share a book. There's a book called Buy Back Your Time that was gifted to me by somebody in the industry. It's by Dan Martell. That book helps you delegate and outsource when needed, because so much of how we're programmed to do things is, we can do it ourselves. So read that book. It might open your eyes onto when it's a good time to outsource. And then beyond that, operate your business like you're going to sell it. Even if you have no intent of selling it, if you put yourself through, I'm sure there's online courses, coaches, or whoever else is out there. If you go through with the lens of what would the next person want, we're in a silver tsunami now, they're calling it. Lots of businesses are going to be for sale or are for sale now for these baby boomers that are retiring. And many of them don't know what their business is worth or how they're going to make money. They might just close the doors, which is doing themselves and their business that they've worked so hard on a disservice. So really try to step back and say, what would this business be worth? How could I sell it, and what do I need to do to implement those changes? And whether you end up selling or not, I think that taking a step back, or it's almost like a third set of eyes or second set of eyes, will help you run your business more efficiently and hopefully make some more money and have some more fun along the way.
Fun, that's what it's all about, right? So let's make it fun. I love to coach people and make that fun and help you establish those core values, which will indeed add value to your company. And we're going to have more on that, because just yesterday I met with some gentlemen who specifically work with you on ensuring you understand the value of your business and what actions you can take to ensure it has value at the time you want to sell it. So that's great advice, Ian. Thanks so much for being with us. If you'd like to meet with Ian and talk some more, it'll be in the show notes, so you can understand more about passive investing, which will also help other small business owners, right, be successful, and you can benefit from it. So thanks again, Ian, and listen in to make your passions pay. Have a great day. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to Make Your Passion Pay. If today's episode inspired you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a rating, and share your thoughts in a review. Every listener makes a difference in spreading this mission of joy and purpose. Want to take the next step? Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, or anyone looking to build a thriving, values-driven workplace. Together, we can create communities where passion fuels success. Until next time, remember, when you lead with joy, you inspire greatness. Let's keep making your passion pay.